Hi guys, just putting another short video together. I'm with one of our former students today. I'll let her introduce herself in a second, but I'm Craig Lashford, the course director of physical geography. Anna, you can introduce yourself better than I can.
Hi, I'm Anna Manning. I graduated from Coventry doing a BSc in geography back in 2016, and since then I've become a meteorologist, which my foundation at Coventry certainly set me up well for that.
I still can't believe it was 5 years ago that you finished, but that's blown my mind still a little bit. But anyway, so why did you? I suppose first roll it back a little. Why did you choose Coventry? What made you think about Coventry?
When I first off was considering universities, I considered lots of universities. I ordered every prospectus under the sun. I went through them all. I had maybe, yes, no sort of piles. Coventry fortunately ended up on one of the maybe or yes piles. Went and looked around the open days. Everyone at the open day was really friendly, really helpful. They answered all my questions. It just seemed like a really friendly, engaged place, and all the course sounded so interesting as well. And that's really what followed through throughout my course. So it really was a good way to judge going to the open day and meeting everyone.
Yeah, I mean that I think going to open days and getting a feel is really important, because I think we are a friendly. Well, I'd like to think so. I think we are a friendly team. So obviously you're now a meteorologist. What did you study? What can you? I mean, it's going back to you. But what was there anything in particular you can remember at college? Obviously, your dissertation. Any modules in particular that you can remember?
There were lots of modules. Fortunately at Coventry, there's a lot of choice. I feel like particularly in first year you cover lots of different aspects of geography, so it gives you a good way of dipping your toe in the water in lots of different areas. I remember in first year we did some coursework on the Icelandic volcano, and we had to work out where our ash cloud would end up from weather maps and things like that, which was really fascinating, just the idea that you could work out where something was going to go from the weather maps, and I found that so interesting. And that sort of really gave me the kind of idea that you can sort of forecast the weather and sort of the basic principles of it. So that was sort of one particular piece of course that really inspired me into meteorology.
I love that piece of coursework because, like you say, it just gives a really nice overview of some of the introductory physics, I suppose, doesn't it, to kind of show what to do. So I know that your dissertation was obviously linked quite a little bit to what you're doing now. I don't know if you can remember it. What did you do for it?
So I looked at how the North Atlantic Oscillation, which is a atmospheric situation that you get sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, and I looked at how the phases of that would affect the weather that we get in southern Spain. So looking at rainfall and temperatures and things like that, and looking for any correlations, which I think is really important to look at things like that, particularly with climate change affecting different areas. So areas becoming more dry is something really relevant at the moment. So that gave me a good stand to sort of work out patterns in the weather and climate.
So obviously, once you left Coventry, what did you do once you left Coventry?
So at that point, I was fairly sure that I wanted to do meteorology. Given what I'd learned at Coventry, I felt like I'd got a good standing on that, and it was definitely something I'm interested in. It's something I'd always had in mind earlier, but being at Coventry had really sort of solidified that. So I looked at courses that I could learn more about meteorology and looked at how you could get into a career. And I found that University of Reading was one of the top places in the world. We're quite lucky to have a top centre for meteorology in the UK. So I applied and I got in to do a master's in applied meteorology, and I did a year studying it in more detail. There's a lot of maths and physics involved. It was fine and kept up. It was great.
Yeah, I think we have quite a few people that go on to work. I mean, what you're doing now at the Met Office, and I know we've got quite a considerable number of former geographers at various stages, actually, from Coventry at the Met Office. So, what's your role now at the Met Office? What are you doing then?
So I now spend a significant percentage of my time forecasting. So I work at a airbase providing forecasts for the pilots there. That means that I effectively a very important person in the system for making sure that the pilots stay safe and are able to operate at all times, which is of great importance for national security as well. The other part of my job that I do is I also teach meteorology. And so I started doing that after I'd been forecasting for a couple of years, and I sort of wanted to expand my skills. I'd done a lot to do with communicating within the Met Office when I'm doing forecasting. I felt like teaching would be something I'd like to do. So I also teach pilots about meteorology, primarily pilots, but other people as well. And that's linked to the Met Office college that I do that with.
And that's really a really interesting bit, because we think about pilots and we know that, you know, that they need to have some understanding, but it's actually another fantastic skill that geographers have, you know, embedded within meteorology, that ability to teach, the understanding of process, that also ability to convey all of that knowledge. And I think that's really important. And you know, so when did you start working at the Met Office?
2017.
Oh, blimey. Okay. So you've been doing it for a few years. So what was the process like? How did you apply for it? What's the training plan like with the Met Office?
So it's a fairly long process. And initially I applied it sort of, or at least when I applied, it was a standard CV and cover letter that I had to write for the job description. And then I was invited to an assessment centre where we had to do both exam and sort of team building activities as well to assess how well we could communicate. People who got through that stage then had an interview, which was I think 3 interviewers, some of which were meteorologists, and within that there was a presentation as well. I think geography really set me up well for that. There's lots of opportunities to do presentations during coursework, so that helped a lot. And then once we were successful, a few months down the line, we started an initial training course down at the Met Office headquarters in Exeter. And that initially was about 6 months or so, primarily theory, but a little bit of learning how to forecast the weather as well. So a little bit of both. Then once I'd done that, I did about 6 months of on-the-job training. So that's learning embedded with other forecasters, watching what they do and essentially copying over time. And eventually you get there and you can forecast the weather yeah, you become able to do it on your own.
It sounds like such a fascinating job, and I can only imagine it's a talking point when you tell people what you do as well. I can only imagine the amount of people that have to ask questions, or maybe even tell you what you're doing is not right because of don't quite understand the processes of how difficult it actually is. Is that fair?
Yes, it definitely is. I get a mixture of people saying, "Oh yeah, your job's easy. You can get it wrong and you don't lose your job," which is one of the perks. On the other hand, people get very excited, very interested a lot of the time. Just today, I was on a dog walk at lunchtime and ran into someone in the village who was very interested in meteorology, and we ended up having a chat for about 20 minutes. So it's always a good talking point. People are very impressed.
Well, but I suppose that is the thing. It is a really good talking point, and particularly with everything that we're learning and developing our knowledge about, particularly climate change, and with the ongoing, the upcoming COP talks, hopefully later this year. COVID permitting, I think it's later this year, isn't it, in Glasgow?
Yeah.
I think it's all a really important thing that geographers are going to play such a really important part for, and that's why I believe geography is such a fantastic degree. I think it's given you the kind of platform to go on to do some fantastic stuff. I mean, you mentioned the maths and the physics behind it, but it's that geography underpinning that supports all of that analytical knowledge and understanding.
I think geography certainly is it's something that a lot of meteorologists have done as their undergraduate degree, talking to my colleagues, and it's something that is really good for getting you to link the impacts of the weather on people, which is essential to being a meteorologist. If you don't appreciate the impact it has on people, then you're not able to give the service that you otherwise would. So just understanding the science behind it isn't enough, and geography really sets you up well for that understanding. So
yeah, that's a really interesting. It's something I've been actually working on, and a piece of research I've been looking at doing over the last few years, actually looking at the influence of the changing storm names and how naming storms has changed people's perceptions of risk, and how that's really started to just change people's understanding and what that means to people. So I think you're exactly right. But thank you very much, Anna. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for taking your time, for telling how great Coventry is, and more importantly, how fantastic geography is. Thank you very much.
It's okay.